Good evening, explorers. I'm Explorer Torie, and I'm here today to give you another native Nevada nature. If this is your first time here, each week I'm going to be doing a special on one plant or animal species native right here to Nevada. So make sure to tune in. This is an educational presentation that all ages can enjoy, watch, and learn. I know we're all social distancing right now. We may not be able to experience the outdoors as much as we want to. So Explorer Torie here is going to make sure that you get to explore the outdoors indoors. So I hope you enjoy this presentation. For today, we are going to be talking about the Gila Monster. And just to let you know, it's not Gila Monster or Gila Monster. It is Hee-luh or Hee-le Monster. And their genus species is Heloderma suspectum. So Heloderma means studded skin from the ancient Greek word the head or the tip or the head of a nail or stud, and derma meaning skin. Suspectum comes from the describer named Edward Drinker Coke, who suspected that the lizard might be venomous due to the grooves on its teeth. The name Hee-luh refers to the Gila River Basin in New Mexico and Arizona, where the Gila Monster was once plentiful. The really cool thing about a Gila Monster is they are the largest extant lizard native to North America. What that means is the Gila Monster is the largest living native lizard here in North America above the Mexican border. If you go past the Mexican border, there's another species that's much bigger. But here in the United States, we got the Gila Monster. It can be anywhere from about 12 to 22 inches in length. The biggest one recorded was in a zoo, and it was 22.5 inches in length. But usually you want about the 15 to 20 inches. They can weigh anywhere between 1 to 5 pounds. And they say that the tail is over 20% of its body size. So a lot of girth on the tail, long body, largest living lizard in United States. And it's actually our only venomous lizard here as well. So let's go into the scientific details on how to identify a Gila monster. So very characteristic, unmistakable to see one. So they are defined as a stout lizard with an elongated body, short limbs, and a thick tail. So you could see that big old face, that big old gigantic face with the big cheeks, long body, and that thick tail at the end. They have venom glands right on the lower jaws right here. And their skin is described as having round, bead-like appearances, and you can see this better in the picture on the right. Looks like there's little beads all over their body. These are actually called osteoderms, and most of them think it's modified scales, but they're actually little individual bony plates. So you can see this on the skeleton, which I'll show you later, but they're little bony plates sticking out of their body that's exposing through it. Pretty cool. These osteoderms, these bead-like plates, were common in a lot of dinosaurs, but the Gila Monster is one of the few living reptiles that actually still exhibit this behavior. And then probably the most characteristic thing of the Gila Monster is the coloration. So the Gila Monster is black contrasted with a pink or orange yellowy color. You could see that clearly in this picture, bright warning colors of black and orange. So you got to look for those bright colors, the big old head, elongated body, and that thick tail. Which, by the way, the tail functions a lot like a camel hump. They use it to store fat and water in times of scarcity. So a lot of times they'll have that thick tail to have that storage available. And in times of scarcity, you might be able to see a Gila Monster with a really bony, thin, ballpoint pen thickness of a tail instead of that kielbasa-sized tail. So hopefully you never see that. We always want to see big, thick tails for lots of storage. So I'm going to help you identify between a male and female, though there are observed morphological differences, a different appearance between male and female, but they are inconsistently reliable to determine sex because of different variations. So I'll go over the variations first. So you can see the bottom picture is a male, the top one is a female. The male tends to have a bigger face, bigger cheeks, bigger face, longer body, as opposed to the pear-like face of the female, not as thick of cheeks, much smaller body, and the tail isn't as lengthy. So those are all identifiable characteristics, but some females look more male-like and some males look more female-like. So these have not been reliable ways to be able to tell the difference between the two. The best way to look at it is to see either their reproductive organs or use an ultrasound to see the reproductive organs. That's a real clear way to know that you got yourself a male and you got yourself a female. You can't do that very easily in the wild, so you may not be able to tell the sexes apart in the wild. But at least I let you know how to identify them in the field, right? Well, actually, there is a debate on two different subspecies of Gila Monster. So we have the southern variation, the reticulate Gila Monster, which is the picture on the left. It has light markings that are broken up and formed into a reticulate pattern. So what that means is if you look on the back of the picture on the left, the reticulate pattern, the back is known as having a reticulate pattern, which is like a net-like pattern where it doesn't seem to have any clear lines or clear markings. It's all just a bunch of blotches and splotches. So that is the reticulate Gila Monster, which is Heloderma suspectum suspectum. Whereas on the right-hand side, we have the northern variation, the banded Gila Monster, which is made up of light markings that generally form an unbroken band across the back. So you could see clearly on the back of the picture on the right. For instance, you could see those black bandings, those clear black, 3 black bandings with those white specks on it. And then in between, you can see 2 yellow bandings or pink bandings in between. So it's definitely like a banded pattern as opposed to being kind of splotchy and random. So that's the banded Gila Monster, which is Heloderma suspectum centum. There is a debate on whether they're actually subspecies or not. The genetic data doesn't support it, but there is obvious indicators to find the difference between the two. So you may be able to cross one if you're in one area and see the other in another region. So here's a map of the range for each of the two subspecies. So up north we have in the Mojave Desert, most commonly we have the banded Gila Monster. So here in Nevada, that's pretty much what we'll see. Down south in the Sonoran and Chihuahuan deserts, it's where you're going to find the reticulate Gila Monster. The Gila Monster in general is found in the southwestern United States, anywhere in Sonora and Chihuahua and Mojave deserts, in Arizona, California, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, Baja California kind of, and slightly into Mexico. They inhabit in scrubland, succulent deserts, oakland woodlands, so a lot of different variations, and they say that they can even go up to elevations over 5,000 feet. Crazy. You'll find them seeking shelter in burrows, thickets, under layers of rock, and they usually try to be near locations access to moisture, just so it's not too dry and washes. But you can find them in all different types of ranges all across the southern western United States, anywhere the corners of Utah and Mexico, and then all the way down into or corners of Utah and New Mexico, all the way down into Mexico. So wide range. Their closest living relative is called the beaded lizard, or also called the Mexican beaded lizard. This is Heloderma horridum. This guy, to tell the difference between the two, This guy's much bigger than the Gila Monster. They average anywhere from 22 to 36 inches in length, whereas the Gila Monster is only 15 to 22. So much bigger guys, much thicker. And then the patterning is a little bit different. You could see from this picture on the right and left how they have those speckled yellow dots, and they have those banding on the tail, but the dots aren't as prominent. They're not as blotchy as the Gila Monster. So the coloration is much duller than what you'll find on the Gila Monster. So good way to tell them apart. Also, this guy is found on the southern end of Mexico into Guatemala. So they're not going to be here in the United States usually. So Gila Monster is what you're going to find here, but you might find its closest living relative if you go down into Mexico. But they're all called beaded lizards because they all have those osteoderms, those bony plates on their skeleton. And here's that skeleton here I promised you earlier. So you could see the bony plates right on that skull. Those are what protrude through the Gila Monster's skin. So pretty interesting. Let's talk about something even more interesting. Venom. So as I said before, they have modified salivary glands that are now venom glands on their lower jaw. So let me give you a quick introduction into the venom versus poison. So if you are venomous, you must eject or release poison from your mouth or your body in order for it to hurt your combatant, your opponent. Whereas if you're poisonous, if someone tries to ingest you or eat you, then you will hurt them or kill them. So venom comes out and poison is on the skin. So the Gila Monster is venomous. And if you think of a rattlesnake comes by really quickly, bites its opponent, and runs off, releasing and injecting their venom into the individual. Well, Gila Monsters are slow creatures. They don't move that quickly. And they lack that structure in order to inject their venom. Instead, the venom is propelled from the gland to the tooth from chewing. So chewing promotes it. That capillary action is what brings venom out from the tooth and into the victim. But they say it's not super strong. They say though, well, I should correct myself. The venom is as toxic as a western diamondback rattlesnake. So it's that toxic. But the Gila Monster only produces it in small amounts. So it's in little amounts and it takes a long time to be injected. And that's why I say it's not as powerful, but it's definitely as potent. So the Gila Monster is going to, if he comes at you and bites you, he's going to want to hold on to you as long as he can, just so that he can release more venom into you. They say that the best way to help with a Gila Monster, if it has trapped you into its jaw, is to dunk it in water. Really, that's what they said. They say that you might be able to pry it off or try to get it off your arm or wherever, but you might be able to get lacerations from the teeth driving into your skin. So please be careful like that. Try not to get bit in the first place. But if you do, they say these are the side effects. You may get excruciating pain, edema, weakness associated with blood pressure dropping. I don't know if you've heard of Coyote Pearson. He's a zoological journalist who goes out and gets bitten by these crazy animals. He described a bite from a Gila Monster as the worst pain he has ever experienced. It's like hot lava coursing through your veins. Pretty incredible. So it courses through your body. It gives you pain. They say it lasts only about 24 hours. There is no anti-venom for a Gila Monster bite. They pretty much just treat the symptoms, deal with the swelling or the pain, and help with your lowered blood pressure, and wait till it passes onto your system. So it's definitely painful, but it's not fatal. Actually, since the 1930s, there hasn't been a reported case of an adult human dying from Gila Monster venom. So it's very rare that you'll die. They say any cases after 1930 of any fatalities was due to adults who were intoxicated and probably doing things they were not supposed to be doing. So, like I said, these are sluggish creatures, very slow moving. They're not going to necessarily attack you, and you have time to get away if you do feel threatened. So don't provoke it, leave it alone. They actually say that because the Gila Monster's diet is mostly small mammals and eggs, nothing that would necessarily need all of that venom to subdue. They say that the Gila Monster developed venom as a defensive mechanism, not a way to start hunting or getting prey. And this makes sense because of their coloring. It's a warning color, warning people that you better stay away or else I'm going to bite you and it's going to hurt. So heed those warnings on the back of its body. So the colorings mean stay away as much as possible. But let's talk about the healing methods for the venom. And you might be saying, Explorer Torie, you just told me back there that the venom feels like hot lava coursing through your body. How is there healing potential to this venom? Well, let me surprise you. So, in 1990, we had 2 doctors that found a hormone in the venom of the Gila Monster. The hormone Extant-4 works very similar to another hormone found in the digestive tract of humans that regulates blood glucose. So they turned it into a drug called Extant, a drug that's a synthetic version of the Gila Monster's saliva, and it's actually led to healthy, sustained glucose levels and progressive weight loss of people with type 2 diabetes that took part in a 3-year study. Extant is sold commercially by a different name that I can barely pronounce. And this is a shot that's actually given to type 2 diabetes individuals. And now, more than 2 million people use Extant to help with their type 2 diabetes. It's crazy that such powerful venom can have that much help throughout the world. It's crazy. The saliva of the Gila Monster has more research being done on it. They say that one of the side effects is showing an effect on the memory. And so therefore companies are doing their research to see if they can use the saliva from the Gila Monster to help with memory loss in various diseases such as Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, and ADHD. So I'm looking forward to continuing this follow-up on the research and seeing what comes from that. So we talked about the venom. Let's go ahead and talk about the lifestyle of a Gila Monster. What is it like day to day to be a Gila Monster? So most of the studies done on a Gila Monster was done by a researcher named Beck. And when Beck was asked to describe his life in watching the Gila Monster for many years, he described it as very boring. Gila monsters spend 95% of their life underground. Their abodes include abandoned mammal burrows, pack rat nests, crevices behind large rocks, and every year they may spend about 2 to 3 weeks on the surface, and this usually corresponds in May and April when breeding season happens. But they're solitary creatures. They'll stay underground by themselves. Sometimes there's a little bit of communal, but mostly they only come out and see other Gila monsters during mating season. It's cool because Gila monsters, they can live up to 20 years in age and 30 in captivity. The record for the longest living Gila monster is 36 years old. Alright, these babies are carnivores. They eat meat. The Gila monster will eat small birds, small mammals, frogs, larger lizards, insects, and carrion. The wild thing about Gila monsters is that they don't need to eat as often. So I told you before, they spend most of their time underground and they're very sluggish, very slow, which means that all of their calories can be compensated for the entire year just by eating maybe 3 or 4 large meals. So they'll merge out of the surface usually around mating season when there's plentiful of food. They mostly eat reptile eggs and bird eggs. Those, have a lot of protein, calorie intake in them. And they'll eat these 3 or 4 large meals. And that's all they'll eat throughout the year. It's crazy that they'll eat that much and they're good for the whole year. That's why it's very important for their tail to store all the fat and water, because they'll be using that storage throughout the whole entire year. And by the way, their top speed is only 1.5 miles per hour. So very slow creatures, but they gotta move slow. They have slow metabolic rates. They digest really slowly. And they only eat 3 meals a year. So slow guys, probably why you're never gonna hopefully ever get bitten by them, just because they're so slow. But we got some mating. So like I said, they'll emerge about April until early June. This is the best time of the year, and the males will try to pick up some females. Not much is known about the Gila Monster just because it spends so much of its time underground. However, there has been observed male-to-male combat. So the male will grab each other and try to tip each one over, and the dominant male will try to overdo the subordinate and put him in his place. The one who wins, the dominant one, is said to have greater strength and endurance and win more often and enjoy better reproductive success. So not only are they protecting their territory, they're trying to be able to impress some females and be the one to reproduce. So if they're nearby, they may engage in some male-to-male combat during the breeding season. After breeding, the females will lay up to 2 to 12 leathery eggs that will spend the winter below ground and hatch next spring, which is about 120 to 150 days. The hatchlings are only 6 inches long, and they become miniature replicas of their parents. So you can clearly see in this picture, they look just like an adult Gila monster, just tiny versions. Once the hatchlings emerge, they're pretty much on their own immediately. So this is very common for a lot of reptile species. They lay their eggs and bury them and then leave them be. And once the hatchlings emerge, they're pretty much on their own to survive, figure out life, and take care of themselves. So good luck, little guys. That's pretty much the lifestyle from childhood to adult for a Gila monster. But let's talk about some myths, because somebody's been spreading lies about the Gila monster, and Explorer Torie is here to tell the truth and get the truth out there. In 1890, a Scientific American article wrongly claimed that the Gila monster has killer halitosis, which means really bad breath. It is said that their breath is very bad, and its odor can be detected at some little distance from the lizard. Basically an odor that would overpower their prey. This was brought off by a belief that Gila monsters would, they lacked anuses. So they lacked a way to excrete their excess waste from their body. And therefore, they would have to regurgitate it. So they would throw up their waste from their mouth, and therefore it would cause an odor. However, let me set the record straight. Gila monsters do have anuses. They do exert their waste out their bottom, just like we do. And I cannot attest to the halitosis, the bad breath. I've never been close enough one to really get a sense of their breath. But I imagine they're like other lizards where they're not necessarily breathing on you all the time. And I wouldn't worry too much about their breath. I'm pretty sure that's a myth too. I want to say that these creatures have been wrongly accused of things. So get it from here. Get it from me, Explorer Torie. So there was a film back in 1959 called The Giant Gila Monster. This was part of Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's a drive-in movie where a 70-foot Gila monster was roaming the countryside, gobbling up hitchhikers, truck drivers, and amorous teenagers. There was a real life animal portrayed in the movie, but if you could see from this preview I have, they wrongly used the Gila Monster. It was actually the Mexican beaded lizard that they used. So, not a Gila Monster, more lies, but pretty funny movie regardless. But let's go back even further than 1959. So there was Gila monsters in the fossil record. So the Gila monster's closest living relative as well, the beaded lizard, and many of the extinct relatives of the same family, their evolutionary history can be traced back all the way to the Cretaceous period, which is 45 to 66 million years ago. The genus Heloderma has existed since the Miocene, which is about 23 to 5 million years ago. And there was fragments of osteoderms, just like this one, from a Gila monster that was found back from 10,000 to 8,000 years ago. And these deposits were actually found in Las Vegas, Nevada. But from all the fossil records and what they've shown, it looks like all these lizards have remained unchanged morphologically. So their appearance hasn't changed pretty much all of these years. So the Mexican beaded lizard and the Gila monster, they are occasionally regarded as living fossils, remnants of the past still here in the future. So it's really cool. But as always, it's good to look in the past, but we always got to look towards the future and see the conservation status. So the conservation status of the Gila monster is near threatened. So it's not necessarily in the endangerment area. It's not threatened yet, but it's getting there pretty closely. And there's a wide range of varying degrees on what's happening with Gila monster populations. So first off, habitat loss and alteration is the biggest thing. When humans move in, they leave less space for the Gila monster to reside in. This all comes with development of roads and energy developments, city expansions. All of these different things play in the habitat for the Gila monster. Road mortality is big, especially if you're building roads right next to their habitats. Predation by cats and dogs is even a thing as well. And illegal collection and or killing of Gila monsters. So first off, there's an illegal pet trade, illegal trade of animals that goes on as well. And the rumor that the Gila monster is, a dangerous creature also prompts people to kill them as well. So you got to set this record straight that they're not very dangerous. They're not fast moving. So please have people stop killing them on purpose. They say that climate change will also play a role in Gila monster populations. They live in desert areas, and intense periods of heat will only increase drought. And a lot of their prey relies on water. And, if they can't get access to their prey, they might not be able to feed themselves. And as well as other lizards, they don't thermoregulate, or they cannot control their body temperature. They're cold-blooded. So they rely on the sun to be able to heat them up for them to move. So if they don't have access to nicer days, or when it gets more intense heat, they may not be able to be around to live. It definitely will increase their mortality. So it's protected by the state law of Arizona, and there's definitely recovery plans out in those states, especially like New Mexico, where they're working to protect the Gila monster and to deal with the different ways that are affecting their population. So they're looking at the different problems and coming up with solutions to help with their recovery. It's also very important to do environmental impact statements when you are doing a project. Those impact statements look at the different ecology, the different animals present, and does the best way to deal with them or to prevent the project from happening because of these species that are prevalent. So it's very important to protect NEPA, protect the EPA, make sure that they're doing their jobs correctly so that we can protect these living fossils for years to come. But that's all I have on the Gila monster. Pretty cool guy, very cool lizard. I'm glad you guys got to learn about it from me, and I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you guys also enjoyed the monstrous word search that I put together for this presentation. I did it myself. It was a little bit hard, I admit, but hopefully it was fun, gave you a little bit of entertainment, and thank you for everybody who submitted it or let me know that they are working on it. Really appreciate it. But next week, we are going to be learning all about the bristlecone pine. And that pine, I want you to find it through my maze. So go ahead and solve the maze and see if you can find the bristlecone pine tree right in the middle. Good luck with that as well. And if you finish it or work on it, let me know. Send me pictures and you may be featured on the next Native Nevada Nature. But until then, as always, come see me every Wednesday at 5 p.m. for another weekly spotlight on a native plant or animal species. If you have any suggestions or comments or questions about the Gila Monster, go ahead and put them in the comment section below and I will answer them after this presentation. But have fun with the activity, and until next week, keep on exploring.